segment, Viewpoint, your personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Boy, this morning we got some perspectives, all right. We always try to start Viewpoint. That is the name of our program, isn't it?
Yes,
anyway,
sir.
We always try to start that with a kudo or two. And I think it'd be appropriate. Now, I'm not kind of sucking up to the sheriff here, but I think, excuse the expression, but seriously, we have driving conditions out there, and we have some first responders that are put at risk. And I'm serious when I ask you to drive carefully, for goodness sakes. Just down around Lawndale a few minutes ago, some person came up behind me doing about 75 mile an hour on old 66, and that's just too doggone fast. The person has no chance of recovering if it hits some ice or anything like that. And then what's that do? That calls out first responders. So kudos to the first responders, because it's not much fun being out there in this kind of weather. So let's get right down to business and introduce our first guest this morning.
Well, yes, we really are lucky. We have a plethora of
Can
guests.
you spell that?
Yeah, you really want it? Anyway, the sheriff has stopped by to tell us something really neat that all of his people are doing, and to tell us to use our heads. Sheriff Mark Landers, another of Mrs. Landers' children. We had one last week and one this week. Do you have one to send for next week?
we can probably accommodate you there.
Okay.
There's enough of us.
Well, I want you folks on television to take a note of how sharp our sheriff looks here today. My golly,
Thank you.
spent 3 years in the military, and I never had a commanding officer look that good. So, we're glad to have you with us, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Well, I appreciate you having me. The primary reason is to talk about our winter weather driving and to make sure that folks are being careful. Veterans Day was a holiday for a lot of folks, and it was also a miserable day weather-wise. And my men and the men of the City Police Department, men and women of the City Police Department and the state were busy from multiple accidents, multiple injuries. One of the primary things that I observed personally was on an accident out here on the interstate, where that several vehicles continued to drive by and weren't getting over, and were still traveling at highway speeds. It's the biggest issue, and like you said, Mr. Gossett, this morning, keep in mind that your reaction time with the ice and the conditions is going to be a lot different than it is in normal driving conditions. Also, and I'm going to put this out there, I've got a 16-year-old who just got his driver's license 3 months ago.
Stay off the streets, folks.
Yeah, stay away. But he's out there, and he's young and he's cautious. So when those types of vehicles are going slow in front of you or taking their time, just be patient. It really isn't worth, having that accident and then having to have, law enforcement and EMS and firefighters out there in these roads in these conditions, and then it's a cause for concern. So just take your time. There's no place that's worth getting to that is that important.
Well, inevitably, and it's just lamentably so too, we have people killed who are out there doing their job because of people's carelessness. Right. And it's unconscionable that people drive so poorly, and they come up on the sign of an accident and they get all hooked up with what's this all about. They don't pay attention to what they're doing, and the first thing you know, there's some poor devil in front of them, and we have a fatality.
Man, it's been a very tough year for law enforcement. The state police have lost several troopers, and not just law enforcement, but our tow truck drivers are out there,
yes,
on a daily basis trying to get folks off the side of the road. The bottom line is that if you see those lights, move over, slow down. If you can't, I know a lot of times those semi-trucks are running beside you, you can't get over, but slow down, make it safe for everyone. There are laws in place, Scott's Law, and there's severe penalties attached to that for a reason. We need to make sure that the people that are out there working those roads and highways are safe, and they get home to their families just like you do.
Sheriff, before we went on air, we were talking, and my phone acts weren't working as well as I should. So, just a program with your deputies. So let's get into that, please, sir.
All right. Briefly, so in November, everyone's heard of No Shave November. It's made to draw attention to men's health, and typically at the Logan County Sheriff's Office, we don't allow for beards or goatees or things of that nature.
Clean shaven, well presented.
Clean shaven, that's just my philosophy. But during the month of November, we do a No Shave November, and the deputies all donate a little bit of money in order to participate in that function. They take donations, and then at the end of the month, we put them all together and see which one of those young men have the prettiest beard, and we'll vote on that, and we'll put it on Facebook for y'all. But those donations that they collect at the end of the time are donated to the Jimmy V Foundation in honor of Mr. Feldman of Flaco, who was Tina Feldman's husband that works for our office, and it's just something that is an honor to participate in, and my guys truly love it, and they enjoy it. So it's just one of the special things that we do, and that if you're interested, you can reach out to the Logan County Sheriff's Office and participate in that if you'd like to.
I'll give you a little money, but I'm not growing a beard.
Well, we have male and female officers that participate in that event, so you're more than welcome to.
I'd like to see that. Well, seriously, a little fun with it, but the bottom line is that there's some serious donation going on here.
We do what we can to just raise just our little part of it. So the Jimmy V Foundation obviously is a phenomenal organization that contributes to the research, for cancer, and that's just something we're proud to be a part of.
Sheriff, I noted on the early morning paper that the Smirker thing popped up again.
Yeah.
That's not anything that's active at all in your files of any kind, is it, after all these years?
Well, in any case is
it's not solved.
I don't have the answer to that. It wasn't way before my time, and I haven't had anything come up.
Yeah, you were just a little shower.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. I'm not sure you were even a gleam in Dad's eye at that time. That's been a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
But there's, every once in a while that pops up.
Well, Ruth Martin was a friend of mine, and she was a good time and a good person and a good Christian.
So
and I still miss her, and
now,
a lot of people do.
Speaking of that type of thing, do you work with a lot of unsolved cases that came on the docket long before you became an officer? Do you still have some of those sitting around in your files?
Any homicide case is kept on file forever. We don't ever get rid of that evidence. Not a lot of unsolved homicides with our agency, but every now and then we get information that comes forward on cases, and every one of those leads has to be followed up on. It's mandated for us. So, yep, we look into those as they come up.
Instead of just got this file on somebody's desk somewhere, somebody picks it up and does something with it.
Yes, sir.
If not much, but at least some action takes place.
Yeah, if somebody calls in or something comes and we receive something in the mail, then yeah, it's absolutely going to be looked at. We'll assign a detective to it. We don't have the volume of those unsolved cases like some agencies do, but yeah.
Sheriff, how about your table of organizations? How many are in your department now?
So we're supposed to have 21 sworn. I've hired 8 new deputies this year, so we're a very young agency.
Isn't that quite a few?
It is. We started out the year short, and then through promotions and folks that I promoted up from the ranks to fill my administration, we've had to replace those. So yeah, I've hired 8 new deputies this year. So it's been a growing event for us.
Now, is there a pool?
We're not a young
pool.
Organization here. He and I. And maybe Jim would like to get rid of us. If you need extra deputies, just whistle.
Be careful, that wouldn't take him very long. Shut the mic off would be a quick answer. Right. Seriously, obviously you have a pool from which you choose as you bring folks along.
Sure.
What's the depth of that pool? Do you have several?
Sure. So we implemented a testing process. So the testing process with the Sheriff's Office starts with a written exam. It's from a nationally recognized testing foundation that kind of The questions are designed to not just, a yes or no type of question, but to delve into what a person's decision-making capability is and how that works for them. After that written test, there's a physical agility test, and then from that point forward, it'll go to, once they've passed both of those aspects of it, they'll go to an interview with an investigator. That investigative interview is pretty in-depth, pretty significant. Takes a couple hours. Once you pass that section, then there will be when an opening occurs, there'll be a conditional offer of employment, but then you'll go through another medical physical, and then a meeting with a psychologist to have an evaluation done.
That's just where I failed.
That's, it happens.
That's
We may
why
not rise to the top in that one.
that's where I was ushered out to the door. I'll get serious just a minute here. We always try to get serious on Viewpoint. Seriously, we have some real serious building problems in our courthouse. The county board has got
Dear heaven, yes.
just almost an unsolvable problem without a lot of money. And I had somebody the other day tell me, well, they ought to just tear the thing down. And I looked at him, I said, I thought you were smarter than that. My take on that, if the money was sitting on your table waiting to go, moving those officers out of the courthouse while they do a reconstruction job is almost unfathomable to even think about that. It would throw a real kink in your daily operation. And you think of the clerks up there with all the records and so forth, they would have to be taken out of there and stored carefully, and where they could be accessed. I can't believe that we would even consider tearing that building down.
No, we're doing everything we can to make sure that that's not going to happen. That courthouse has been a centerpiece of this community.
It's an architectural beauty.
1905, absolutely. So what it comes down to is that is the primary issue facing the county board. We've got to get that repaired, whatever that takes. And
well, when we lost that referendum that you worked so hard for, 50 cents on $100. Unfathomable that didn't pass. 50 cents on $100 is nothing.
Well, now you're viewing what takes place when you don't take care of things.
Well, there were some concerns that possibly some of the voters were concerned about those funds going to the jail. Well, this referendum here doesn't include the jail. It's the courthouse only. The jail is not part of that. Any funds that will be received from this referendum will go specifically to the courthouse.
And we have to get that word out, because there are people that
Right.
we don't need a jail. Well, they were wrong about that, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that it was the decision was made that they are going to focus right now primarily on the courthouse. Let's get that fixed, and then once that's completed, then down the road we can look at the issues that we're having with the jail. That was a decision that was made, and I support the fact that we need to make the courthouse the priority. And we'll get there. We're not going to vacate that building. It's not going to happen. It would be cost prohibitive, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to, hopefully, the word's going to get out, and that, obviously citizens and county board members are going to get out there and talk to folks and educate them on the need and the necessity. But for now, the courthouse is functioning. It's operational. We're taking the steps necessary to mitigate the water intrusion and to make it safe. So everything that needs to be done is being done. And then hopefully, come this spring, that referendum will pass, and we can start work on the restoration of that building, because the bottom line is it is the anchor of downtown Lincoln. We have visitors from all over the world that stop here, especially with being on Old 66, and then having that courthouse with those murals, and once we get that stained glass back into that dome, it's just such an attraction for people, and it's a beautiful historical building that we need to take care of.
648-5510. If somebody has a different opinion, we'll accept it. I may put Jim's hand on the discontinue button on him, but no, seriously, it's a subject that people want to talk about here in the county, and I hope we'll talk about it with a professional attitude and think in terms of reality and not just, well, what it ought to be. We're dealing with a real serious problem, and we can't just continue to ignore it. The county board has a great responsibility there. And so anybody wants to comment about that, we'll accept their opinions, and Jim will give you more than 5 seconds. So, biggest problem you have right now, Sheriff, in your office is something that you can talk about. I'm sure you have a lot of little things that come up every day.
So staffing was one of our issues. We're starting to fill those spots. So here by the spring, the thing that I think folks have to understand about law enforcement and corrections and dispatch as well is that it takes time to train folks for those positions. A police officer starting off with no experience goes through the academy for 4 months and then comes back out and has to be trained by a field training officer for 4 months. I mean, it's 8 months before that person's really ever in a car by themselves. And then, there's varying opinions about how long it is before a police officer is actually comfortable, being by themselves with the statutory knowledge that they need in order to be very proficient. That's why we have supervisors in place to help out those young deputies. Corrections is the same. Corrections is a world that not a lot of folks think about much, but every day you're in a facility with individuals who are confined, for one reason or another, and that's our guys work 12-hour. Our guys and ladies work 12-hour shifts in that jail. So it's a tough job. When I came out of the Army, I worked at Pontiac Prison there for a year before I became a police officer. I got just a little taste of what it's like to be a correctional officer. So those folks that are working in the jails and working in our prisons they got a lot of respect coming from me.
Yeah, as you know, I had a son that was started out at the bottom of the rung in corrections, and when he quit, he was a warden at Illinois River. And I was pretty proud of that accomplishment. Absolutely. Down through the years to make that achievement. But you're working with it. Folks who do the things that cause them to come under the eyes of the law are strange people for the most part. There's no way you can put them in any one class. Each and every one of them is different in their own right.
Right, and I know that was something that I spoke about last year, is that regardless of your thoughts on it, is that once individuals do come into our facility, we're responsible for their protection, we're responsible for their care. And until that time that they're no longer in our care and custody, then that's just what we're supposed to do. We have that obligation statutorily, and basically is doing the right thing. So.
Don't you hate people who say, when I was young, but I'm going to do it. When I was young, a lot
that was a long time ago.
Back in the dark ages, boys especially thought about, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a policeman. Is it that way today, or is it hard to find people who want to be a policeman and will be a good policeman?
It's very tough today. It's a lot different than it was back in early 1990s when
the 1890s. That's what, yeah.
Back when I started, all the police departments are vying for the same small pool of resources that the current environment. We're fortunate in Logan County. We're blessed to have the support that we have for law enforcement. I mean, we really are. I make no bones about that. We live in a great community where we have a lot of support. There are communities that aren't like that, but just the perception that getting into law enforcement, it's a tough field to get into, especially when you look at the civilian sector where you can, obviously make more money and do a lot more things and not have to put up with some of the things that we do. But it is tough right now. Everybody, and this is in communication with other sheriffs and other chiefs, we're all saying the same things. We're looking at the same small group of people that are trying to be police officers, so everybody's trying to develop those assets. And it does happen. It's when we have police officers move on to other agencies, it just happened to us here at the sheriff's office. They're moving on for whether it's better benefits, better pay, different type of policing. You can't fault them. They're doing what they believe is best for them and their family. So I was the recipient. Actually, 3 of our current officers came from other agencies, and that benefited us. So we're, boys said, I love being a county officer. I love it. I'm not a big city limits fan, so I love being able to go wherever I like in the county. And we used to make the statement that this is a marathon, not a sprint. So you can put a lot of years into this occupation. So,
well, I don't have to CYA anything about my driving because I drive very slowly and maybe too slowly sometimes. So I won't stroke you so that I don't have to worry about a ticket. Was there a what was your biggest surprise? And then we're going to excuse you, Mark. What was after you took this oath of office, do you have some jump off that you hadn't expected? That's a blind question.
That's all right, though. I truly believe that this profession is a noble profession. I think that people that go into this line of work, I do believe that every one of them does it for the right reason, and that is to help, to help people. That's what we're here to do. Some of the tough things that you learn, I've been doing this now for 25 years, but some of the eye-opening things is that you think you're going to help folks, and sometimes you don't get that opportunity as much as you'd like. Now, your daughter, who is a wonderful person and a friend of mine, works in a field similar to that, where you see all this tragedy, you see this heartbreak, and you do what you can to help. Yeah. But some of that stuff has been done, and you know how this works as well, that some of that tragedy and some of that heartbreak, there's it's too late by the time we get there. It's
hard to take that home.
It is sometimes.
Sure.
You have to learn to and not keep that stuff bottled up. You got to have a good partner. I'll tell you what, just as this is my shout out to police spouses, they are the best of us. They put up with us going to work every day, every night, and they always have that worry, of whether or not we are coming home.
Absolutely.
And then when we do come home, we're upset or we're quiet or whatever that ends up being. And many police officers don't unburden that on their spouses, and that's just part of our culture. But we, as a culture, have to learn to talk that stuff out, because you can't carry it along with you. Otherwise, it'll eat you up.
Logan County is lucky to have Mark Landers as our sheriff, sir. Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate your time, and we have a little truncated program this morning, and we're going to bring Alison back on after we have a little break for our commercials. Go right ahead, Jim. And we're right back live in the studios here, WLCN. Program is Viewpoint. We have a truncated program this morning. We had the pleasure and it's an honor of having our sheriff with us this morning, Judith Gay. He's a whale of a young man, and Logan County is well served with Mark Landers, I'll tell you that. So let's get in the second part of our program. Introduce our nice guest.
The second part that was the first part, that plans are what you make while you're waiting for life to happen, Yeah. And we had planned to have Alison Gomez with us from Community Action Partnership of Central Illinois, and with her is Breann, Titus, and they are going to tell us just as fast as they can talk. Does this weather make a difference in your business too, girls?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us how you're impacted then.
Well, we have several programs that really deal directly with the weather issues. So we've got the Energy Assistance Program that deals with helping pay utility bills, of course. And then we've got emergency furnace services. So when people's furnaces go out and they don't have any other options for repair, they usually call us, and we've got some funding for that. But I think a couple of areas that people don't recognize when it comes to the weather issues is the Meals on Wheels program and the senior transportation services. So a lot of our homebound seniors that rely on those Meals for Wheels programs, they don't see another human other than our delivery drivers who come out.
That's right. That puts an added responsibility on your people. They have to go out there and be the best friend and the hostess and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that is part of your assignment, your role, isn't it?
For sure. I think that not only do we deal with the socialization element, but just the wellness checks and being that friend and being that happy face that greets them at the door, because a lot of times they don't have anyone else to serve in that capacity. So our drivers, I know Mark is wonderful about telling all the virtues of his champions, but we certainly have them too in those drivers, whether they're delivering folks to dialysis that don't have any other options to get them from one place to another, or serving a warm meal.
You mentioned one word there, and Judith Kay is certainly familiar with this, but dialysis. People need to get there.
Yeah.
They need to keep those appointments.
Yes.
And an overnight snow can make a huge impact on people's lives.
Absolutely.
And you have to wrestle with that and make sure you get patient so-and-so to the dialysis place out there on 5th Street.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything worse. Well, I guess I could. But anyway, when you're responsible for your schedule of getting people to the place and helping to be sure that their house is warm and all the things, and then along comes snow and ice, and you have to reshuffle your whole priority system, don't you?
Yeah, but I think that's part of the beauty of it, is we really have people out there that live to get up in the morning and serve. So dialysis has recently changed some of their scheduling a little bit. That required us, didn't require, we voluntarily did it to alter our schedule. So we used to run from 7:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, with that being our last route. And just recently, they've changed their schedule to some for efficiency purposes, but some really for cost-saving measures. And now on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, our drivers are up and out the door by 6 a.m., and they don't bring in the last patient until 8 o'clock p.m.
Oh,
so
boy.
we've
That's
had to
a real
make that.
service,
We've had to make that change. But like you said, if they can't get to dialysis, it's life-threatening.
That's
we're so lucky here to
choice.
have it in Lincoln, instead of having the patient drive to Wilmington, Decatur, or Springfield to get dialysis. Here it is, right in our own backyard, and we're so fortunate that it is here.
Yeah, we really are.
Judy's Buzz was a regular out there, and so she has first-hand knowledge of the importance of what the dialysis department is out there.
DaVita's great. I mean, they do a fantastic job. They're very customer-driven, and they take care of their folks, and it's an easy partnership for us.
Buzz went for 3.5 years out here, and I'm sure that that's not the longest stretch that people have had. So you just keep accommodating and accommodating. That's kind of your middle name, isn't it? We will accommodate.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, tell us how many people work for Community Action.
We have about 130 employees.
Wow.
And we're stretched out over 6 counties. I don't think everyone realizes that when they think about Community Action, because we're sort of nestled here and behind the bowling alley in Lincoln, Illinois, and they think that's the extent of what we do. But we cover all the way down to Piatt County in the Monticello-Cisco area, up to Clinton, into Logan County with Lincoln, Atlanta, Latham, that area, over to Mason County, and then all the way into Fulton County and down to Menard County. So we're stretched out over 6 counties, and we provide services in all 6 counties.
Well, you put a lot of miles on your cars then, don't you guys?
That's amazing. I had no conception. I knew we covered a large area, but that is a large geographic area you just described there.
Yeah. We're one of the largest employers in Logan County, and we've got about a $10 million budget, which is also something I don't think people realize how much money runs through our organization.
Now tell us a little bit about from whence cometh your budget money.
We historically have relied very heavily on federal and state money, and Breann, and she's been a blessing in so many ways, but a couple of years back we decided that reliance on strictly state and federal funding was not a great idea. It wasn't great for our business model, because I know you know this, on occasion the state has been slow to pay the bills.
No.
Sometimes it happens.
Been that way forever. I was in business only 1,000 years ago when they were slow then.
We found ourselves in cash flow crisis a lot of times because we delivered the service and we were waiting for reimbursements and they weren't coming. So we've reduced the amount of money that we rely on those state and federal programs substantially over the last couple of years. So if you take the funding that we receive from like Eaton through their charitable donations, United Way, and a variety of the other grants that Breann writes for, we're down to only about 80% of our funding coming from state and federal money as opposed to 98%. So we're doing a much better job of diversifying the revenue streams.
Well, Breann, are you a registered professional fundraiser then, like?
Well, that wasn't intentional in the beginning, I don't think.
Well, that's the way you started out.
Yes,
Last week you couldn't spell it, and now you are.
Yeah.
Well, now, where do you go to,
absolutely.
my dear? Let's say the state's starting to fall back, and we have a budget impasse out there. You got to open those doors every day.
Yes.
Now, who do you lean on to try to advance your payments? That's got to be a frustrating job.
Yeah, it is.
Because start with, use the bad word, they're all bureaucrats, and it's difficult. Well, that's not my job. We'll let somebody else worry about it. Well, that can't happen. And you call somebody in Springfield to say, we need the money.
Right. I think first and foremost, you have to be good stewards of the money. And I feel like community action is that. I feel like we manage our money well. We have an amazing fiscal department, an executive director that has that business mindset and is financially savvy. So I think all of us in even the management roles, we're all very good stewards of the money. And I think being able to do that allows us to get through some of those hard times when money is late coming in, or we have a cash flow concern, or we have no state budget for several years. So I think that is the first step. You have to be able to budget your money correctly and be good stewards of the money in order to get through those tough times. And I think that's not only organization or business wise, I think that's personal wise. Everybody has to do that because you never know when there's going to be an emergency. You never know when there's going to be financial concern or issue. And you have to be prepared for those times. And I think that's what allowed us to get through the budget impasse and allowed us to keep our doors open and allowed us to continue to serve the clients that mean so much to us and to the community and continue to give those services to them.
Let's keep her.
Yeah.
We're getting a pretty good bang for the buck with this young lady.
We definitely are.
That's well spoken.
Thank you.
The 648-5510. Somebody might have some questions about community action. I don't, in many ways, ladies, it's kind of a sleeper operation out there. Doesn't get a lot of PR. People don't know that it's there even. And so somebody might have a question about what you do out there. And we have two well-spoken ladies and gentlemen, so feel free to 648-5510 if you have any questions.
What's the number of your clients that you serve? What number would that be?
The total population that we serve,
Yeah.
across 6 counties, we serve almost 5,000 households.
You do? Mm-hmm. And those are active clients?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, just for energy assistance, so people that receive assistance for their utility bills through the LIHEAP program and the weatherization program, we have upwards of 2,000 households that just receive those services. And we service almost 400, just short of 400 Head Start and Early Head Start children. And that's just the children. That doesn't include the extended family that also receive the
If that doesn't impress you, folks, stick your toes out the door this morning and think that there are a lot of people who have real problems heating their homes. Mm-hmm. And there you are to help them.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more close than that.
It's very true. And I'll tell you, Breann really gave a great summary of that. But just to put it in perspective, the transportation program that we run that does primarily medical appointments for seniors, critical medical appointments, but also things like socializations, runs to Walmart, get your hair done, take the dog in for their grooming. We do all of that. But we only receive about $35,000 a year from the state pass-through program with area agency. The other $130,000 that is required required to make that program run is raised through private donations. So it really does take an army and a very good grant writer to make sure that we're raising that additional private funding.
You have to be schedulers to the max. Yeah. I mean, you got to bide your time.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine keeping all the balls in the air. Right now, I'm not driving. And it's like being cut off at the knees.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about all the things.
She didn't get arrested, folks. She has a TIA problem.
Yeah. I'm losing my mind.
I kind of wanted to clean that up because somebody said, Busby's not driving again.
You know, I've never been arrested in 80 years. I say that now. I suppose
I can change that. God just went out the door. We can fix that.
I was going to say, if the sheriff is still listening, maybe he needs to come back and find a reason, just for fun. But I want to, she was talking about the drivers, and the weather is not great out right now.
This is
and
true.
We have talked to Davita a couple of times, and there are some patients that are what they consider self-transport. But sometimes there are things that come up that allows them or gives them, I guess, the issue that they can't self-transport. So we can offer that service to them in times where they maybe haven't utilized it before. So if they just don't want to worry about the weather that day, they can contact Community Action, and our transportation service can get them back and forth to their appointments. And what peace does that give their family? What peace does that give themselves to not have to worry about that? Because I can attest to it. Our drivers, whether it's Meals on Wheels or transportation, they are out regardless of the weather, and they are serving our clients the best they can, no matter what the weather is like.
You know, it occurs to me, Judith Kay, that this is one agency that we ought not to worry about where our tax money's going. It's well used.
Well, when they get it, you use it well,
Yes.
don't you?
If the state will pay them, yeah.
Yeah.
But seriously, you're having a definitive impact on a lot of people where there's real need.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing I stress a lot is that typical social service agencies, they tend to be more of a handout styling.
Yes.
And many years ago, I feel like Community Action followed suit with that. Since Alison has become our executive director, a lot has changed. And we went to more of a hand-up style mission and not a handout. So although we still offer some of those emergency services, as she mentioned before, we now offer programs and services that really focus on self-sufficiency, teaching people about money management, teaching them how to be better employees, and really focusing on that anti-poverty and getting them out of their current situation. She mentioned the Head Start children.
Yes.
We focus on the parents because we want to try to help them get out of that cycle of poverty so that by the time their children, who are Head Start students, get to that same age level, they are not continuously going through that cycle.
Now, these are little bitty kids. Don't you start at like 3 or something?
Younger than that, actually.
Is that right?
Yes, we have early Head Start as well, and so that actually is, we start out helping pregnant mothers sometimes, depending on if they need some additional services and getting them prepared for that lifestyle of being a mom, and then we service the infant, so they can actually start as an infant in early Head Start, and then they'll transition to Head Start when they're 3 in order to get ready for kindergarten.
Do you notice quite a marked difference in a child as they spend their time in early childhood ed?
Absolutely. And I think that's so much more expected these days. Even when I started school, preschool or early childhood wasn't as big as a thing. Sometimes you just kind of jumped right into kindergarten, and that's just not the case anymore. And so these children really get that readiness. They get the interaction in a classroom with other students. We do family style mealtime, so they learn how to interact in a meal setting, which a lot of
little
them,
manners like
yeah,
stuff?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yes. So we kind of focus on that life skill side as well as the educational side before they get into kindergarten.
Now, you say that you go through these youngsters to help the parents.
Yes.
Now, what kind of services do you feel are imperative for their parents?
Right. So we do get the parents involved as far as helping their kids with their homework, trying to getting them involved to have that interaction at home, because sometimes that doesn't always happen. But then we also have programming that can help the parents. So we can put them in our Financial Peace University classes to kind of help them learn how to manage their money better. And even if they receive benefits, if they have received SNAP, if they receive disability benefits, whatever that may be, we actually help them manage what they're receiving, how to better manage their SNAP benefits. So at the end of the month, they're not running out of their benefits. They can extend that. So we help them manage their money. We help them prepare for that emergency. We help them do our Jobs for Life class, which is actually in our hand-up project.
Now, that's to teach you what skills you need in order to maintain the job that you have.
Absolutely. Resume writing, interview skills. We have some amazing business partners and community champions in that class. Chris Coyne with State Farm is a huge advocate, comes every week and does interview skills.
Bless his heart.
Yep. We have faith partners in the community. We have Open Arms Church that comes. We have Pastor Cammie Palmer and just several faith partners that come and kind of teach that side, because it is a faith-based class. And then those business champions. Mario Cannon with Anytime Fitness comes and does some championing for us. Seth Goodman has been out several times to do some of that, and kind of expands that network of people. You know, when you're in poverty, typically you are in a circle of poverty, so the people that you interact with are also in poverty. So we try to give them interactions with people that are a different demographic than they are, to teach them that Mario, for example, that you can come from one particular demographic, but you can work your way out of that demographic, and you can be a business owner, and you can be an actor, and you can do all of these amazing things, but you have to work at it.
You're very well spoken, young lady. Tell me about your background, your skills. This just didn't happen. You have to start with. She has to have some innate ability and skills.
This is most certainly true.
That's the beginning. But how long have you been with Community Action?
I have been with Community Action. It'll be 4 years in February.
Well, it sure shows.
Yes. So I've always been a talker.
That's okay.
Let's start there.
You know what you're talking
I
about.
have that affliction myself.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's a difference. You know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Are you implying that I don't?
No, I just said them.
Yeah. So I've always been a talker, and unfortunately, and I guess slightly fortunately, I've passed that on to my children. And my husband is also a very outgoing person as well, so we kind of have that dynamic. But I went to, I graduated from Illinois State University with a degree in communication.
That shows.
And I had the option to pick communication or public relations, and communication is more focused on the spoken word, so that's what I chose. But with this job, I've actually been able to go into the marketing and the PR side, which has been kind of fun and interesting. And I've learned so much being at Community Action. Previously, I was in higher education. I worked in recruitment, and so I met with people on a constant, consistent basis. And I guess my gift of gab has kind of gotten me into a career field of it. So.
Well, taxpayers, be content, taxpayers. You're getting your money's worth for this young lady. We're getting our money's worth with Community Action. We appreciate your being with us this morning, Leanne. I'm sorry about that.
Breann, you're right.
Yeah. We appreciate the fact that Sheriff Mark Landers would spend some time. He's a busy guy right now, particularly with his road situation and so forth. We thank you. We thank you and Alison Gomez for being with us this morning. And tell us a little bit more about telling us a little bit more about Community Action and how important it is to our community.
Absolutely.
You know, it kind of destroys this self-fulfilling thing where we have people in a poverty level and it just kind of rolls over.
It does.
And
It
so
does.
we appreciate the work that you're doing, trying to prevent that rollover.
Yeah, and one of the things quickly I'll mention is I don't think also people realize that our executive director she knows the feeling of poverty. She's been there, and that's unfortunately the story that sometimes I wish she would say more, but sometimes she doesn't or doesn't have the time to do that. But she lived a short time in poverty, and so she lived it. She knows it. She's worked her way out of it, and so she's a great advocate for the customers that we do meet. We are a sleeper organization, I feel like. Unfortunately, I feel like we need to get more out there. But Alison, she is a very busy woman. She sits on, I think, 8 different executive boards. And
Bless her heart.
Yes, and she's always going, and she's always making a name for community action out in the big world. And she has her management staff here and in the other counties that work on the day-to-day stuff. But she is definitely on the go all the time, working on ways that we can increase our service profile, how we can change our strategic plan, how we can benefit more customers, how we can get our name on the map a little bit more, and she works very, very hard at that.
Thank you very much. I made one decision, Judith Kay.
Yes.
I'll never appear in a debate against her.
I think I'll sign on your paper too there.
We'll close Viewpoint with the usual word. Be the reason somebody smiled today. Thank you very much, Scott.